Rabbi Feldman, thank you for agreeing to do this. We are at the office of Rabbi Feldman and Yeshivat Ner Israel. This is Rabbi Aharon Feldman, the Rosh Yeshiva, and today is July 7th. I think it's Hey B'Tammuz. And my idea was that what is missing in our multiplicity of Jewish education and life is the image of the Zayda. Seeing him in shul and learning, and the big image of uncritical, glowing, giving, had made a lot of Jews probably remember their Jewish childhood in favorite terms. So I thought, who is it better to do it with than our Gdolim?
Well, Shal Avicha v'Yageitchos Keinecha v'Yemuach. There's a Jewish tradition has a past. It has a past, has fathers, had grandfathers. It doesn't spring out of nowhere. There's a story with Rabbi Kamenetsky. He was once on an airplane with his children. And it was very noticeable how much honor the children paid to him. So a man came over to him and said, how come, he says, when you religious Jews, there's so much respect for elders. And among non-religious Jews and secular people, non-Jewish people, there's not so much respect for elders. Why is it that way? So Rabbi Kamenetsky explained to me, he said, you believe that man has evolved from an ape. Every generation is better. Every generation has evolved to something better. The old generation, the ancestors are to be discarded. We have a new frontier. Every generation is a new frontier, something new to add to mankind. We believe that the pinnacle of mankind was at the time of the giving of the Torah, when God revealed himself to mankind. And every generation therefore gets weaker because we're more removed from the source of the giving of the Torah. So we honor those who are closer to the source. Therefore, children honor their parents, and grandparents even more, because they're closer to the source. I think that's the idea of it. Elders in Jewish society are the source of the tradition. They're closer to the origin of Judaism, which is the giving of the Torah and our forefathers. So children, the new generation has to know, what does the old generation have to say? They're, after all, the echo and they're the image of that previous generation. They're trying to imitate them.
The best question I can ask you is, what brings out the Ahavat Hashem over Yirat Hashem?
Well, we have to define what Ahavat Hashem is and Yiras Hashem is. Ahavat Hashem is a feeling of gratitude to God and to a feeling of closeness and wanting to come close to Him, and wanting to experience His closeness. That's Ahavat Hashem. Yiras Hashem is the awe of the recognition of how distant we are from Hashem. How we have no right to even question Him or to attempt even to come close to Him. There's two conflicting drives in a person. One is want to come close to Hashem, and one is the fear of coming close, like a moth. A moth wants to come close to the flame, but when it comes close to the flame, it feels it's getting burnt. That's how we have two conflicting ways of relating to God, right? So we need to have both. We need to have Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. We can't think of God as our good friend because we're losing all the concept of godliness. We have to have Yiras Hashem. God is beyond us. On the other hand, God is not just someone who wants to punish us or beyond us. We can relate to Him. We can do His mitzvahs. We can carry out His will, and we can come closer to Him in our lifetimes.
So what brings out the Ahavas Hashem in a person who is every day confronted with so much halachot and mitzvahs and burdens? How do you make a person stop and say, appreciate what you have? Ahavta Hashem Elokecha.
When someone loves someone else, his natural inclination is to want to give him a gift, do something for him, not just to love him. A person doesn't tell his beloved, I love you. He has to do something. He has to show it. He has to express it. So love for God is expressed in actions. I want to carry out your will. I want to change my character so I'll be a better person. person, I'll be closer to you. I want to proclaim for all of mankind that you created the world, that you're here. I keep Shabbat because Shabbat is a declaration that God created the world. So I am interested in letting God being known by mankind. That shows my Avos Hashem. Avos Hashem means that we want to get closer to Hashem, and therefore we want to do the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs shouldn't be a contradiction. They enhance my Avos Hashem. In fact, every time we do a mitzvah, it's customary to say a certain prayer beforehand. Shem Yichud. We say that, may this mitzvah bring us closer to Avos Hashem. And the mitzvah brings to Avos Hashem.
So you're touching exactly on the gap where people don't see the connection between mitzvah and Ahavat Hashem,
Right.
and how it affects their sense of grandeur in life, that they're being loved and they can love back. Since we're talking about grandfather, I know about your father. His name is Joseph, and his name has been honored in various places, but I don't know about your experience with your grandfathers.
I never met my grandparents because of the Holocaust. My
Right.
parents escaped from Europe for various reasons before the Holocaust. And I never met my grandparents.
So you never had the
I never had a Zayda, never had a Baba or a Zayda, on both sides. All I have is pictures.
So did you have somebody who was like a Zayda to you, who put you on his lap?
No, but I had teachers, had great teachers.
So putting on a lap,
Intellectually
it's
put me
a
on their lap.
exactly.
Yeah.
Intellectually, I didn't touch upon. I'm talking about love.
Physically, no, I never had that. Never had that experience. I'm certainly missing something because of that. I had a contact with the tradition of the past. My grandparents lived, in my eyes, because of the stories that my parents told me about them. I knew exactly what they were like.
So you heard a lot of stories about
them and how much they loved their parents. And
yeah, that's exactly, I think, what connected me to this project, because I heard so much about my Zayde, my Moshe Tzvi, the Alte Adler, that I thought, these stories have riveted me, and maybe they kept me close to Emunah.
I'll tell you, the culture of European Jews, I'm sure it's for the Sephardi Jews also, the culture of the society of pre-World War II, pre-World War I society, was one where Judaism consisted of one thing. That was Torah. There was nothing else. There was no other value in Torah. The people that were honored were the educated people in Torah. And what people did with their money is try to support institutions of charity or of Torah. They wanted their daughters to marry learned men, and they wanted their boys to go to yeshivas. It was a society based completely on Torah. So I'm not saying it was all over, but to a large extent, the natural leaders of the Jewish people were the Gdolei Torah, were the Rabbanim, and because of that, I grew up with a certain feel. The connection with the past, for me, was the connection with the European culture, where everything was Torah. I began to realize that those who have another description of what Jewish culture should be like, really falsifying Jewish culture.
You mentioned that you had a lot of good mechanchim, good Rabbeim, and as a child, who inspired you the most in Yiddishkeit, in
Well, I had a
Rabbeim?
teacher who was my teacher for 5 years.
When you were
5 years, when I was about from 10 till 15. He was a teacher who had barely made his way out of Europe just before the Nazis conquered Lithuania and Poland. He made it through Shanghai and obtained a visa from the Japanese consul in Vilna at that time, without really realizing that he needed it. A friend said, "Would you like to have a visa to travel to Japan?" Okay, he said, "Might as well get it. It can never harm." And that saved his life. And he came to America right before the outbreak of the war in 1941, before December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day.
Right.
And he was my teacher. They started a high school
Talmud Academy?
Yeah. It was the 8th grade. I was in the 8th grade. And they started 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So there for 5 years. Started in high school. Had the same teacher year after year. His name was Rabbi Yaakov Bobrovsky. So he's a very inspiring teacher. And of course from the old school. He was a young man. He wasn't even married when he started teaching us.
What was the most inspiring thing about him that made you feel that's what you want to do?
His love of Torah and his obvious feeling that it is the most important thing on earth. The learning of Torah.
Learning of Torah.
Yeah, that's what he inspired me. And all my friends also that were in the class. All of them were inspired by this immense love of Torah. We had the other teachers. We had teachers in chemistry and other subjects in physics and in languages. No teacher ever got excited about what he was teaching. No teacher would portray a chemical a formula and say, do you hear what a formula this is? Do you hear this svara? Do you hear this explanation of the Gemara? Do you hear how beautiful it is? Do you know how much it makes sense? How deep it is? Sometimes we wouldn't understand it, but we go over it and we finally get it and we say, wow, that really is deep. That really is something. There was nothing that we learned in any secular study that equaled the depth or the pleasure. Someone once asked me, a young man had to go out to speak somewhere for some kind of group. So they asked me, what should we speak about? I had to speak. It was some kind of organization that had to give a speech. What should we speak about? Could you give me some tips? I tell them it doesn't matter what you're speaking about, as long as you're enthusiastic and passionate about what you're speaking about.
I'm passionate about enthusiasm and passion and the glowing, inspirational transcendence that people radiate. And somebody will give you the slightest gesture and you'll grab it, and it's all because of the warmth.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. Later on, you went to, I believe, Chaim Berlin Yeshiva, and
I went to this yeshiva. My first
Yes,
yeshiva was Mary Israel. I graduated high school, I was 15, and I came here to this yeshiva. And I was here for about 5 years. And then I went to Beis Talmud. That was a yeshiva where the former members of the most outstanding members of the Yeshivas Mir in Europe. Mir was a city in Poland. It was the outstanding yeshiva in Europe. The former members formed a yeshiva here in Brooklyn. I went there. I wanted to know, I wanted to sit in the yeshiva with these old, the real stuff.
Old world.
The real stuff was there. And I was really, these people were outstanding people. Each one could be a Rosh Yeshiva in his own right. So I spent some time there. And then I went to Chaim Berlin.
That was a different experience.
Different experience, yeah. And that was my upbringing.
Who were you close to at the time?
Well, here I was close to with a Manzachan who was Rosh Yeshiva in Baltimore, and the Mir in Kail was called Beis Talmud. I was close to Leib Malin, and I was close to Yitzhak Kutner.
What are the great memories that you have from those years?
Well, each one taught me something else. Each one had a different message to teach me. Each of them relating to Torah, the way they approach Torah, their love of Torah, their fear of Torah, their awe of Torah. Each one had a separate message to teach me.
At what point did you decide to be a mechanech?
I always wanted to be a mechanech.
Really?
Always. I used to teach when I was 18 years old. I used to teach people. I always wanted to be a teacher. When I was in yeshiva, I used to run with people who were weaker than me and teach them.
And you still have...
I've been taught once in a Sunday school.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was that?
Near Baltimore. My brother asked me to substitute for him for a short while. I taught in the Sunday school. I enjoyed it very much. Sunday schools where people go once a week.
I know.
Mostly modern Orthodox or Reform people.
And they responded to
Very
you?
nicely. A beautiful time. Yeah.
So you went then, I understand, to Israel. And
I went to Israel when I had 3 children already. I was 29 years old.
You went to the Chazon Ish.
Chazon Ish was not alive anymore.
To the
I
yeshiva.
studied in the Kotel with Chazon Ish. Yeah.
Was the impression of the Chazon Ish still there? What was the message?
The message of Chazon Ish that I heard from people that knew him well was that he was the most loving person on earth. Most loving person on earth. Someone once came to him, asked him for advice, and he gave him his advice. And after he left, the man wanted to pay him. So he said, I don't take money for giving advice. So he says, so what do you live from? He says, I live from doing favors to people. It gives me life.
That's
it.
That's
That's
a
that type
good
of
story.
person. A loving person. A loving person.
So isn't it amazing? Everybody wants to get so many great things, and at the end they're remembered. Only those are remembered for not for driving the biggest car or having the tallest building, just for the love that they showed.
Not just love. Love can be a little sentimentalism, but the feeling of truth that you get from these people, that their lives were genuine, with integrity. They were living the way a human being should be living. No self-interest. Once you get involved in self-interest, your life becomes distorted. Your value becomes selfishness. And when you're selfish, you can't be kind to others, you can't think of others. These people lived without any self-interest, without any selfishness. Somebody told me he came to see the Chazon Ish once, he was shocked. He saw a man with a worn-out jacket and a tattered hat. He couldn't believe this was the greatest person in the Jewish world. And yet the happiest person on earth. Why? They never wanted to spend an extra money, wanted to sit and learn, to study his Torah. But a happy man, a completely happy man.
So you're saying that the three foundations of a genuine life is love, giving, and selflessness.
Well, love and selflessness are the same thing. Yeah. The foundation of life is selflessness. And the greatest destruction of human life is selfishness. In fact, the sin of Adam Adishon, the first sin, which is the paradigm of all sins, is also Adam Adishon, the first man, not carrying out God's will because he said, I'm going to gain more if I don't carry out God's will. I'm going to be able to taste this good fruit.
I'm going to have my own agenda.
Own agenda, and I'll be like God. I'll be able to create the world.
So you're saying the pitfall of life is when you stop going in the path and start hearing voices.
Well, when you start thinking about yourself, that you are the whisper in your ear, that you are the most important thing, is the whisper of the serpent.
I'll come back to this issue, but I want to touch on this point. You have been fortunate to have a lot of support in your Jewish upbringing. You met a lot of Rabbi, you had a lot of chinuch, but many Jewish kids don't have role models, let alone Jewish role models.
People lived in my earth that lived during the time that I was alive on this earth, who walked on the same earth and lived the life of the angels, a life of malachim, a life of kindness and a different level, a plane of existence. These are the people that I identify with.
We define people in the frum world either Hasidim or non-Hasidim.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you recently talk about the importance of Talmud over everything else. You see yourself as a Hasid?
I identify very much with the values of a Hasidim, but their emphasis is more on joy and on davening, their emphasis more on davening, prayer, and my emphasis is more on the study of Torah. I pray 3 times a day, and I consider it extremely important, but that's not my main emphasis. My main emphasis is the study of Torah.
So what does the study of Torah give you beyond what the rest?
Beyond the facts.
Beyond prayers, beyond other way of servicing of Hashem.
Well, when I study Torah, I feel that I'm coming into contact with the mind of God. I'm figuring out what did God want for this world. Yeah? What does God want for this world? That's an exhilarating experience. And rivets me I'm totally involved in serving Hashem while I'm studying Torah. When a person thinks of something and tries to figure out something, he's totally involved. His whole organism is involved. When you think about something, you're not even aware of your hand and your foot. My whole organism is involved in a quest for truth. And because of that, I feel that I get totally elevated, totally spiritual.
That's what people would like to feel, what it is in that study of Torah.
Oh, you have to study. I can't describe a color to you if someone is blind. A color is a color. I'm telling you, that's what happens when you study Torah. You get into contact with the will of God. That's what you're doing. And that is a total absorption and your confrontation with God. That's what the study of Torah is.
So that's what teaches also selflessness, because you just described that you're detached from
everything else.
From yourself even.
Right. The Mishnah says in the 6th parak of the Ethics of the Fathers, whoever learns Torah Lishma becomes a very kind person. What does one thing have to do with another? He becomes a very humble person. The reason is because he's totally involved in something which is not himself. Not his self. He's involved in truth, in a quest for truth. That elevates a person to something beyond the ordinary.
I'm sure that this is going to be a message worth following. But you're teaching a lot of, all your life, you're teaching Talmidim.
Yeah.
And they say, Mikol Melamdai Skalti, but Mitalmidai Mikulam. First of all, what do you learn from your students?
I learn from my students the eternity of the Jewish people. Because even though they live with so many distractions and so many reasons not to be religious, and not to devote their lives to Torah, nevertheless they do. Why do they do that? Because they feel something within themselves that this is right, this is the truth.
So you get chizuk from
I get chizuk from their devotion to Torah.
See, this is like the miracle of God's world. Here you have people who can go anywhere and they go to study Torah, and that's another expression of the miracle.
The miracle of the eternity of the Jewish people.
And do you spend time with your students outside of class, like a lot of people?
Most of my time is spent outside of class.
How?
Personal interviews, conversations, they come through their problems, discuss different issues.
A lot of students say that the best time they spend in yeshiva is like spending a Shabbat with the Rabbi.
Yeah, we have every week, we have about 6 or 7 students spend with us Shabbos.
So I have to say, when my sons went to Yerushalayim for yeshiva, the thing that left the biggest impression on me, especially since the store a few years ago, is the singing of the Bachuran with their yeshiva and with the Rabbi. Do you sing with them?
Yeah, I try my best to sing with them. I remember my own experience. I was 15 years old and I traveled from Baltimore to yeshiva in New York once with Simchas Torah. The singing left a lasting impression on me. I really wanted to be that all my lifetime. The yeshiva Bachar all my lifetime.
Really?
Yeah,
How old are you then?
15.
Yeah. And what Zmiris do you like the most? What singing do you like the most?
What Zmiris do I like? There's a song in Yiddish. Olam haba is a gute Zach. Lernen Torah is a besser Zach.
How does it go?
Olam haba is a gute Zach. Lernen Torah is a besser Zach. Warft weg jeden Joch. Lernen Torah noch und noch. Olam haba is a gute Zach.
You know what, if you sing it one more time, I think whoever sees it is going to break in song. So why don't you sing it again?
Just they can play it over. Okay, they'll play
But
it
you're
over.
going to look at them now, not at me.
The song is a Yiddish song which describes the love of a Jew for Torah. It says, the world to come with all its pleasures, its infinite, eternal pleasures, is a very good thing. The Mishnah says that one moment of the world to come gives more pleasure than all the pleasures of this world. Imagine all the pleasures of this world, all the money and all the different stimulations and all the enjoyments that we could have, and all the aesthetic pleasures, and the music and the art, everything in this world doesn't equal one moment of the pleasure of the world to come. Nevertheless, the song goes on to say, learning Torah is even better than that. Olam haba is a gute Zach. Lernen Torah is a besser Zach. Warft weg jeden Joch. Lernen Torah noch und noch. Olam haba is a gute Zach. It means throw away any yoke. Warft weg jeden Joch. Lernen Torah noch und noch. Learn Torah more and more. Olam haba is a gute Zach. Olam haba is a wonderful thing, but learning Torah is even better. The message I have for everyone is to experience the study of Torah, somewhere or another.
It sounds like this can bring Mashiach by itself. So talking about survival and Mashiach in the future, what do you view the future of survival of the Jewish people?
Well, the Jewish people is in serious threat. Chas v'shalom. We know that the Jewish people always exist, but there's so much of the Jewish people that is going under with assimilation, ignorance, different isms within Judaism, which are perversions of Judaism. The only hope is when Judaism returns to Torah and to mitzvahs. That's the only hope. Nothing else is going to work. You have every ism that we've tried, which is supposed to save Judaism, has ended in disaster. All the movements, I won't go into detail. Pick any movement which is supposed to save Judaism and trace its development in the last 100 years, it's ended in disaster. It's ending in assimilation. But the only thing which is lasting, the only thing which is flourishing, the only section of Judaism which continues vibrantly, transmits its values to the next generation, is the community of Jews that keep Torah and mitzvahs. It's the only thing that works. Nothing else works.
So you're talking about the different poles in Jewish life. What is that common part in Jews that affects unity?
The biggest
What
thing
is it
that
in-
affects unity is our belief that there is more to life than physical existence. If you go to every college campus in the world, the ones that are at the forefront of every movement for justice, for equality, for environment protection, are all Jews. And that's part of our nature. Our nature is to look for something spiritual. Be well, Sally, okay?
That's the best way to finish a very loving relationship. It's when you want to have more of it. I want to thank you, and in Yasser Hashem, we should have do it again.
Okay. See each
And,
other. You should have success in your project.